a point, we have to start with the basics so we know how to like label things because this will be basically used every single chapter for the rest of the year. So a point is technically a location. It has no size or shape. So it's literally just a spot in space. Whenever you're labeling a point, you always have to use a capital letter. Yes, are you gonna catch it? Right, throw it again. Okay, so you always have to use a capital letter when you're naming a point. So for example, we're gonna name it point A. And that is it. Okay, let's make it a little harder. For a line, huh? Okay, for a line is made up of points. Technically, it's an infinite amount of points. There's a bunch of points that make up a line. The minimum amount that you need is 2. So any 2 points technically form a line, and a line has no thickness or width. You can name a line using any 2 points or technically a lowercase script letter. So if you look at your picture, we have N, X, and Y. Which 2 values actually represent points? X and Y. So we could say line XY, which is what most people have been using today because they like to write the word line. Another way you could say it is you could say line, and then you can use the little script letter that's off to the side of the picture. Notice that that N is not a point. So that one you can use, it's kind of like naming it. The way that we use this the most, and the way that you're going to see it on the EOC and all of your tests and everything, is the last way, which is what people are not using today. Get off your phone. You can look at it later. So you use X, Y. Math people are lazy and we don't want to write the word line because we don't got time for that. So we put X, Y, and then we draw a line on top of it. Now, a line technically extends forever in both directions. So you have to draw a line with the little arrows at the end. We will be getting into line segments, which have endpoints, which is written similar, just different. It doesn't have arrows, it has points at the end. So this is the way that you're going to see it all throughout the year. So you should try to write it like this, but most people have been using these today. So the vocabulary for lines are collinear points and non-collinear points. Collinear points are points that fall on the same line. So X and Y, they are points that fall on the line. If I add a point to my picture, we're going to add point Z. Let's put it off to the side. Just put it over here. A point with a Z next to it. And for my Z's, I always put a line through it because they look like 2s sometimes. So that's my Z. This would be an example of a non-collinear point because it's not on the line. That's easy, right? Not too bad. So a point, you use 1 letter. A line, you use 2 letters. And then there's this thing called a plane. A plane is technically like your table. Okay? It's a flat surface. So flat surface. And a point, you need 1 letter. A line, you need 2 letters. Anybody guess how many points we need for a plane? We need 3 letters. So there's 3 letters minimum that make up a plane because it represents a space. They're not all on the same line, or else that would still represent like points on a line. So they're like kind of like around. Okay. Technically, a plane extends indefinitely in all directions because it's like a flat space, so it just like kind of goes everywhere. We use these shapes to kind of seclude it because if you didn't have this thing, it would just look like a bunch of points like floating around. So the shape represents your plane when it's on a picture. And then you name a plane using 3 non-collinear points. So they should not all be on the same line. So when you pick your 3 points, 2 of them can be on the same line, but that third has to be somewhere else on the plane. So plane uses 3 points. So we can name this a couple different ways. We can say the word plane. And then what are the 3 points that are on this plane? J, L, and K. Typically, they're in alphabetical order, but you don't have to think that hard. It's not that serious. Okay, so if you don't want to like do the alphabet in your brain to make sure they're in alphabetical order, okay. It doesn't have to be now. That's what I'm saying. So we could also say plane and then use the letter that is not a point. So what's the letter that's not a point that's on this plane? P. Notice P is kind of off to the corner and it's like a little fancy. Okay, so that P represents plane P. And it is not a point. If I used a point, I'd have to use 3 letters like I did for the other ones because this one is off to the side. They always put it in like one of the corners. You could just say plain P. Let me think. That's it. For the vocab for this one, these words are so weird, but we're just rolling with it. So if it's coplanar, what? She's just making up stuff at this point. This is their geometry words. If it's coplanar, they always use collinear. Collinear is the vocab word that they tend to always use. Coplanar means the same thing, but instead of all being on the same line, coplanar is all on the same plane. So if it's non-coplanar, then that would be a point over here. Like if we make this point A, that one's obviously not on the plane. So a non-coplanar point would be like point A. So coplanar on the same plane, non-coplanar not on the same plane, collinear on the same line, non-collinear not on the same line. We're almost done. So intersecting lines. So for this, where do the 2 lines intersect? At P. P is technically a point, so at point P. So a point is labeled with 1 letter. A line is labeled with 2 letters. A plane is labeled with 3 letters. When 2 lines intersect, they intersect making a point. When 2 planes intersect, say these were 2 pieces of paper, there was 2 planes, and they cut paths with each other. Ooh. And they like intersect. Would that form a point? No. What would it form? It would form a line. So what could we call this line? Line K. Most times we use 2 letters for line K, but we don't have any points on there. So if this was like A and B, I could say like AB with a little line on top. So you can either use a little subscript next to it, or you can use the points on the line. Flip to the back. Try number 1. What? What? Oh my God. Try number 1. I can people around here if you want. Now the problem with this is there's like more than 1 branch. So I'll try to list all of them, but like there's like an insane amount of correct answers, but people still get them wrong. So yeah. But okay, we're gonna talk about number 1, or like need take another minute if we need. Okay, so for A, we need 4 collinear points. There's only one right answer for this. H, N, K, and I. If you put them in a different order, that's correct. It doesn't matter. So 4 collinear points, you needed 4 points on the same line. So the only option was H, N, K, and I. If you used P or Q and then you went across this way, P and Q are not points because they don't have a little dot next to them. So for B, it says a line that contains point M. Line P. That's probably what most people used. So you have to write the word line, and then technically it's a lowercase p, but I just made it uppercase, but it's lowercase p. You could have also used 2 letters on that line. So you don't have to write this, but you could say line MN because they're both on line MN. You could say MO. You could say OM, ON. I'm not going to write them all, but they could also be written backwards. It doesn't matter. As long as one of them is correct, it doesn't matter. A line that contains points H and K. Line R. And then once again, you could have said KI, KN, NH, HI, HK, and backwards. Another name for line Q. So when I'm naming a line, I can't use 3 letters. So I can't say JK, L. What should I say instead? I could say JK, and I could write the word line in front of it, or I could put the little arrows on top of it. I could say KL with the arrows. I could say LK with the arrows, or I could say line KL, LK. And then the intersection of lines P and R. Point N. So P runs this way and R runs up, so they intersect at N. That's not too bad, right? Okay, let's try number 2. Number 2 is a little bit harder because you're involving a plane. So take a couple minutes. You can do it. I believe in you. Talk to your neighbors. Even though I know you don't want to, because now you're not in groups, now you're not with your friends. You can turn around and talk to people if you want. What? What for A? A line containing points F. Oh, pause really quick. Does anybody know like why maybe this thing is like dashed right here? It's going through it. So if I were to take my pen and I were to stab this paper, which represents like a plane, if I stab it and it's like, you know, you're trying to look at the top of the plane, so you can't see the bottom of the pen until it ends back up over here. So it's showing it's going through it, and that's why it's dashed. So it's still a full line. It's just on the back half of that plane. I'll take a time now. Keep working. You got this. You could do it. Okay, we ready to go over it? Okay. A. So the line containing point F. What is it? Line J. Okay. Line J, lowercase j, If you use two letters, you could use D, F, E, F, F, D, E, D, okay? Another name for line K. So you could say line BE, but you have to use two letters. The only one that you can use a single letter of is the one that is not a point. So B is a point, E is a point, C is a point. K is not a point, so it's saying use something else other than K. So you could say BE, you could say EC, you could say BC, or you could write out the word literally line and then use those same letter combinations, obviously backwards as well. A plane containing point A. You could say plane M because M is off to the side. If you're using three letters for a plane, they all need to fall on the plane. So if I was going to use three letters, the only ones I could not use are B or C. I could use any combination of A, D, E, and F. So I could say like A, D, I don't know, F. But you can't use M. M's not a point. B and C are off, so can't use that. An example of three non-collinear points. So what's 3 points that are not on the same line? C, B, and what? C, B, and E are all on the same line. Point A. So we can use A. So C, B, and A are not on the same line. I could use D, E, and A. I could use D, E, and B. B, E, and C. F, E, and C. F, E, and B. F, E, and A. See where this gets like weird. Because you can, yeah. Just don't use the ones on the same line. Because it's non-collinear. And then where is the intersection of plane M and L? Point E. Okay, we're going to skip 3 for now because I think 3 is weird. So go to number 4 and try number 4. I feel like it's zigged in. Okay, number 4. Where's the intersection of lines L and M? Point E. So L goes this way, M goes this way, so they cross right here. So point E. Huh? I thought, did you say F? I think you said F instead of E.
I said,
Okay. Yeah. Another name for plane, and people are like, that's a 2. It's a Q, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. This weird letter. Okay. It's just fancy. So we're talking about this plane. We can't use Q because they already used Q. We can use EFG, EFI, IEG. Okay. So any 3 letters on this. The only letter you're not allowed to use, does anybody know the other letter I cannot use? I can't use M because M is not a point. M represents that other line. So I could say plane, and then I'll say I, F, I don't know, G. And then C says, are points D and E collinear or are they coplanar?
Collinear.
They're collinear because they fall on this same line. The planes are the shapes that run this way, so they're not on the same plane. And then how many times do planes P and Q intersect? 0. There's none. 0. Because they run straight up, they never actually cross paths. Okay, so we're gonna go to number 3. Number 3, before you try this, I want to like conceptually for you to understand. Remember, a plane is like a tabletop, it's a flat surface. But now for number 3, what shape is sitting on my table that we already learned about? It's a pyramid. So here's my fancy pyramid. Here we are. Okay. Ooh, shoot, the bottom falls out. I always forget. This is my pyramid. It is sitting on top of my table. Okay. Now, if we're talking about planes, which represent a flat surface, if I'm just talking about this pyramid, how many flat surfaces would be on this pyramid alone? No, 5. There's 5 flat surfaces because you have the base, which represents 1, and then you have the 4 sides that also represent individual planes. Now, your plane, like your, whatever this is, the pyramid is sitting on the table. So does it technically have a base anymore? No, the base and the table are basically the same plane. So whenever you get to the plane questions, make sure you kind of think about that idea. So try number 3. Number 3 is the hardest. So if you're feeling like not confident completely, maybe skip it or just try. Some of them are easy. Some of them are like weird. So, but if you're like, I don't even know what this is asking, just skip it and we'll talk about it. Yeah. You're so far away. Okay. I could hear it. Like, yeah, my turn. Use wrong. CVE. Wrong. That's the tricky one. No, it's not 2. I don't know. You're just saying numbers now.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a second. Like the last 3 that I feel like are tricky. You have to think about when a plane and a plane intersect. When a plane and a plane intersect, it's a line. It is not the point. I have to figure out which line they intersect at. Give up. Do 1. E. Oh. What'd you say? Nope. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, the 2 planes can intersect. Just because like it's not going through it doesn't mean like it's talking about like where it's touching at. Like it's not cutting through, that's true. It's not like intersecting, like cutting through it, but they're touching, so that's what it's talking about. Okay. These are weird. This is the weirdest kind, so let's talk about it. So for A, it says 3 coplanar points. W, X, and V. Most people probably use V's. You could say W, X, V. You could say X, Y, V. You can say any of the sides of the pyramid, technically. You could say Z, V, W, Z, W, X, Z, Y, X, Z, Y, V, because What'd you say? WXY? WXY. That's fine. WXY is correct. So like any of the sides of the shape represent a plane. A plane containing point X. Plane R. And you can say plane XWZ. Oh, not Z. You could say, hold on, wait. Are you talking about the next one or are you talking about this one? If you use 3 letters, for point X, you, well, I guess most people, probably nobody used 3 letters. Did anybody use 3 letters?
What?
For V?
No, it's good work.
Too much work? Okay, we'll just like cross it out. Okay, C says the intersection of plane R and plane ZVY. Well, it's a plane and a plane that intersect. So when a plane and a plane intersect, is it at a point or is it at a line? A line. So did anybody put a line down? No, not like X. Tell me. Oh my God, you're genius. Line VY. So if you think about it, if you have 2 pieces of paper that intersect, it's forming a line, not a point. So I'm going to shade it in. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it's like this piece of the pyramid, this back side, okay? And then obviously the table. So the part that they're sharing is this line right here. That's touching the table. That's also touching the pyramid. So that's a line that they're intersecting at. And then how many planes appear in this whole shape? 5. Because the base is the same as the tabletop, you do not count the base. People are counting 5 on the pyramid and then they're like, the table is the 6. But technically they share that base, so it's not a separate plane. They would both share that plane R. And then how many planes contain point W? 3. The base and then each side of your base. So that is 3. This is a notes paper. We kind of like went through the whole thing together because it's like weird taco. This is going straight into your binder. If you try to submit it online, it does not have a submission thing because it's not being submitted. It's going into your binder. You get credit for your notes whenever we do a binder check. The 1.1 classwork at the top, it says CW, so that means you're turning it into the bin.
Do we not? Oh,
it is not on our table of contents because you're not keeping it. You're either turning it in today or you're turning it in tomorrow. People are finishing them in class. You do not need to take this home realistically. You can do it now and turn it in. Okay. Anytime it says CW, it is being turned into the bin. I'm gonna pass these out, and then what? No, it's 5th period. No bathroom test.